What's up, everybody? Big Cow Diesel coming at you, and I wanted to make a video today to talk to you about the difference between what we'll call real executive protection and uh, the rest, EP. It's important that you guys know the difference between the two, only so that you can make an informed decision when someone calls you about a job that they are calling EP, because the question is it really EP or is it just a glorified security job? And there's nothing wrong with glorified security job. As long as the money's right, I say do it. But there's an expectation that comes with those terms. Words are important. All right. So when these terms are being used, it's important that you understand what that person means when they call you and say, "Hey, I have an executive protection job for you, and I'm paying X amount of dollars. Do you want to take it?" So before you get excited and get stars in your eyes and say, "Oh yeah, I'll take it," you need to make sure that you understand what their definition of executive protection is, and I'm going to talk about what the difference is. So you have what I call real EP, and then I'll talk about what is EP. So real EP is everything that happens behind the scenes. Okay, the scenes of the black SUVs with the suits and the earpieces and all that. That's just the surface. What you don't see below the surface is all the logistics and all the planning that has gone on to make those few seconds that you see a principal being escorted from a vehicle into a building. Okay, you don't see all the logistics that go on to make that happen. So in a real EP job, there's going to be a ton of research, a ton of logistics that have happened, some handshakes with local law enforcement and with site security to make that thing go off without a hitch, versus the other EP where somebody of some local note, maybe they're a up and coming, I don't know, politician, maybe they are, wannabe rapper or something like that, and they got a little bit of notoriety, and they want people around them, and it could be because of their safety, or it could be just to show off, and both pay. All right, as long as the money is right for the EP job, do it, but understand the difference. So I'm going to flip flop back and forth between the two. So when it comes to real EP, there's things that have to happen before that principal moves. If that principal, let's say they're flying in, right? They're flying in. They're going to be in Metro Detroit for a day, maybe a couple hours a day, whatever, and then they're going to fly back out. Well, what that is going to look like is their close protection person who's in charge of security has reached out to us locally, a company that we work for, and says, "Hey, I'm going to be bringing my client into Detroit, and we're going to need some drivers, or we're going to need some RSTs." And so they source, right? And so somebody like me will get a text or a phone call saying, "Hey, can you work, these 3 days on this detail?" Um, and if I have the availability, I'll say yeah, and then what's the pay? And I should get a response back, something such as $500 a day, $700 a day, $500 a day plus per diem. That's what a true EP detail is structured. These people have a ton of money. They're not going to be nitpicking about, oh, this amount per hour and all that. They're going to say, look, um, we need 5 guys. How much are you guys charging? What the company should say is, we're going to charge X amount of dollars per guy per day. And then whoever the decision maker is going to either say yay or nay. 9 times out of 10, if money's no issue, they're just going to say okay. And then our company is going to tell us what our cut of that is, and then you decide, are you going to do it or not? So in an instance like that, I'm not part of an integrated team. I'm local. I'm going to integrate with the person's team. So that person's advance agent should be coming to town before their boss does, meeting with us, going over the plans. This is where we're gonna stay. These are the places we need to go. And then what'll happen is depending on what's going on, we may help with the advance, or they may just do the advance on their own and give us the routes. But an advance is going to be going to the hotel or location where the person's going to stay, meeting with their security. If the person is high enough profile, they will. This is what we call the handshake. They will make the handshake with hotel security. If the person is high enough profile, they will also make the handshake with local PD. They will call local PD and say, "Hey, I've got Joe Blow coming to town. I just want to let you guys know if you could support, we love it. If not, not a big deal, but just so you know, this person's in town." And then each site that that person is going to travel to has to be advanced. Again, there's a handshake that's made with the staff at those places. And not every place has in-house security, but they have housekeeping staff. They have physical plant managers and managers that run these places. So that handshake is made with all those people. And then the routes have to be advanced. So you're looking at the route from point A to point B to point C, and then you're going to ride those routes. You're going to either, again, as a local guy, they may say, "Hey, we want you to advance the routes." And what are you looking for? You're looking for traffic jams. You're looking for bottlenecks. You're looking for places that you don't want to go. Being local to Metro Detroit, I know pretty much the places that are safe to go and places you want to avoid. That person that's coming in from out of state doesn't know that, right? And that's the advantage of using local guys. And then not only do we run the routes, but we also plan alternate routes. What time of day would be the best time of day to go this way? Maybe this is the most direct route, but because of traffic during rush hour, which is the time that we need to be moving, it's better to go this way. And then each site has to be advanced. So not only are you making that handshake with the staff on site, but you need to know, where are all the doors at? How many doors come into this place? Is there a place where we should debus undercover? You always want to debus out of sight if at all possible. That means an underground garage like hotels sometimes have, or bigger buildings like the Renaissance Center has 2 levels underground. That's where you want to go in and out. Why? Because you don't want anybody to see you. If nobody sees you, if they don't know you're there, that kind of mitigates that threat. Anytime you see a security detail with somebody that's entering through the front of a building or through a front of a venue or out in the open, that lets you know it's a PR thing. Because in real life, somebody like me, I don't want to have this person out in the open. I want them covered at all times. So how are we getting in and getting out? Then once you're in the building doing that assessment, you got to figure out where your hard rooms are. You have to establish hard rooms. What's a hard room? Hard room's another term for safe room. If something jumps off while this person is in the building and we cannot get directly to the vehicle to get out of there, we need basically a place to barricade. So we will go through and we will identify where the hard rooms are at, and then of course we make sure that everybody knows where the hard rooms, everybody on the team knows where the hard rooms are, so that if we need to barricade before we escape, we can go in, barricade, and prepare to defend that area. And then same thing, if we're en route and something happens, a traffic accident or something else happens that we weren't planning for, how are we going to deviate and get around and get to where we're going? So as you can see, there's a ton of things that go into that. As an EP agent and even as a security driver or RST, you're going to have an admin bag. Admin bag looks something like this. There's different sizes and shapes. This is basically a sling bag. I'm not going to go into all this right now, but I have this bag. It's pretty hefty and it's full of stuff that I may need on a detail. There's medical stuff in here. There's things such as phone chargers. I keep an empty water bottle. Oh, this one's not empty, but I keep this empty and keep it handy in case I'm somewhere and I'm not going to be able to, on these details, you can't just take a break and leave your post and go get something to eat or drink. But that's a video for another day. So all these things have to be planned out. They have to be rehearsed, and it has to pass the test. so that when that person gets there, they can go from point A to point B to point C with no interruption, right? This is all things that you learn when you go to school. Now, I did some EP work prior to going to school, and so there were some things that I had already done before, but when I was sitting in that school, I was like, man, I did that wrong. I did that wrong. I did this wrong. I did that wrong. So you learn the correct way to do everything. Now, having said that, no two EP details are the same. Uh, Everyone I've been on is different, nor are they going to be textbook. Just like any other training in any other school you've gone to, you're going to learn the textbook ways to do things, but when you actually get on the ground, it's going to be different. In an ideal EP situation, you'll have a team of guys, you'll have a convoy and all that, but sometimes there's just two of you. One is the driver, one is the AIC, or the close AIC. So, driver is responsible for the vehicle. Your AIC is also the close protection guy. So he's in charge, or she. They're the ones that are running the show. And sometimes that's how it's going to go, okay? One other note, and then I'll start talking about the other side. Most EP jobs that I've worked so far are low profile. They want you to blend in. So a lot of times I'm wearing regular clothes. Every so often, yeah, we have to wear a tie or a jacket, a suit jacket, with no tie. I think one time I had to wear a tie one time. But 9 times out of 10, you're in civilian clothes. I mean, there's even been times where I've been in jeans where they will say, look, this is what the client wants. They want you to blend in. They do not want everybody to know that they have a security team. So sometimes I've been on details where you don't know if I'm the security guy, you don't know if I'm the assistant, you have no idea, and won't know unless something goes sideways, right? So enough on that. We could talk about EP stuff for days because there's so much to it. So just from what I've talked about right now, if you've done any of those things, then you're like, okay, yes, that's a real EP job. If you've never worked a real EP job, you're probably going, holy cow, I didn't think about all that. And I just scratched the surface. I haven't even done a deep dive on that, which if you guys want, maybe I will break it down a little more, especially if you're thinking about doing it full time. I only do it part time. To do it full time, you either have to move to one of the larger cities, New York, LA, DC, Miami, to chase the pager, so to speak, as a guy I follow says, where you're not working for one company, you're working for several, but you need to be in a location where there's a demand for that. Here in Michigan, especially Southeast Michigan, there is a demand for it, but most high net worth individuals that live in the area either have their own teams, their own people, and those people stay with them forever. Or occasionally they might contract out, or somebody comes from another city, they're going to be in town for however long, and they need guys. And so that works for me, being part-time, working those jobs here and there, because that allows me to run my business, and it allows me to teach, which is what I love to do. And if I were either full-time with one client, or in a position where I was working for a bunch of EP assignments back to back to back, it wouldn't afford me the time to do what I really like to do. But if that's something that you want to do, you got to set yourself up for that. Oh, one more thing I will talk about. Getting into the EP world it's who you know. You can have all the schools and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, you still have to have a network, and that's the door, that's the gate. Those are the gatekeepers. Your entry into that world is to go to a school of some kind. Everybody will say that their school's the best or whatever, but you want to go to one of the well-known schools and pay the money and get the education, because you'll make your money back. But that's the gatekeeping mechanism. You have to have the network so that somebody flies in, you do some work for them, they're happy with your work, so they know that when they come back, they can call you and say, hey, you remember me? You know, you drove for us last time, or you sat on the house last time, or you were part of the team, the close protection team. Are you available? So that's how that stuff works. Now let's talk about the other EP stuff. And this is mostly for you local guys that have only worked locally. Again, you're working maybe for some wannabe rapper or something. And I'm going to tell you guys, you do you. I don't do rappers. I don't do venues. I don't do parties, although I did get tricked into doing a party one time, but it was okay. But that's my personal preference. Some of you, that might be your thing. You might like working with entertainers, and that's fine. Just know that there's another layer of threat there. And like I talked about in one of my other videos, is the juice has got to be worth the squeeze. You got to be paid well. But remember, we'll use the rapper thing. If you got some kid that's from the east side of Detroit that's got some talent, he's up and coming, and he's making music videos and this and that, and maybe he's traveling, maybe he is doing some traveling to some venues and stuff, but let's say they got a beef with somebody, and it could be gang related, it could be professionally related. You are now at a higher threat level than me, who is guarding somebody who is a multi-millionaire that probably nobody even really knows, right? But I'm making way more money to drive this guy around that most people wouldn't even recognize on sight, but who's rich for real, versus a young entertainer that's got a little money and maybe more well known than this guy, but the threat level's higher. You're making less money. That does not make sense, guys. Again, at that point, you're basically a glorified armed security guard, which is fine as long as the money is worth it for you. But I'm here to tell you, our job as security professionals is what? Threat mitigation, right? The other side of that is you got to stack the deck in your favor. Do you want to put yourself at a higher risk of having to deal with a deadly force assault because you're out at a local nightclub somewhere and this guy or gal gets into it with somebody and now people are pulling guns out? You don't want to be in that situation. It's not worth it, at least for me. Again, you do you, if that's your thing, but you got to be smart about it. A lot of times when you're doing those type of jobs, there is no advanced work being done. There is no handshake with facility managers. There's definitely no handshake with law enforcement, because usually when law enforcement show up to a situation like that, it's after something has occurred and it's it's too late at that point. So but it doesn't have to be up and coming entertainers or rappers. It could be a business. It could be really anything across the board. But when these project managers call you, EP is the buzzword, right? So they'll call you like, oh, I have an EP job. Well, you better ask questions so that you are sure you understand what the job is, because what this person is calling an EP job may not be an EP job. And you don't necessarily have to call them out and be like, well, that's not a real EP job, because you don't want to burn a bridge, but you just listen to what they have to say, and if it doesn't fit the criteria for you, you just decline it. I decline jobs all the time. I do it all the time because I have to think, let's take the EP, the real EP part out of it. I do armed security just like you guys do. And if the money makes sense, if it's not too heavy of a lift for me, meaning I don't have to drive out to Timbuktu, get a hotel and all that. If it's an easy lift and they're like, hey, I want you to just sit in this empty building for $30 an hour for 12 hours, okay. I might do it if I don't have anything else going on. The building's empty. There is no threat. So, for me, I'm going to do that versus being called for an EP job where I have to drive somebody around. I'm basically an armed chauffeur for $30 an hour. You see the difference? You think to yourself, well, empty building, driving's not a big deal. But again, driving is a bigger deal because now you're transporting somebody, right? And so that whole, what if you get in an accident? Just an accident, just a fender bender. Right then and there, that adds a layer of threat even though it's not from an adversary, that still adds a layer of threat. Um, or you go with this person and let's say they want to go to a bar. So now you're dealing with that whole thing because unless you have an exempt CPL, you can't even go in the bar. Um, and if you're in the bar with them and something happens, now, so you guys see what I'm saying? For $30 an hour, that does not make sense to me. Now for that same job, it's an armed, basically driver job. I might do it for $45 an hour, $50 an hour. Maybe it just depends. Again, for me, I've been in the game long enough, and I just know what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. So when somebody calls you for what they call an EP job, just make sure you understand the difference. If it doesn't involve you being part of a team of professional EP guys and they need another body and they're willing to compensate you accordingly, just know in your head it's not an EP job. So when they say, "Oh, I want you to drive this person around, I'm gonna pay you $30," in your head say, "Okay, it's an armed security job. That's what I'm doing." And then you just have to decide if $30 or $35 an hour is worth it to you. I would subscribe to you that it's not, but maybe you're newer in the game. Maybe you're just trying to build your resume. It may be worth it to you for that. So that's my take on it, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if I missed anything. Is there anything that I failed to bring up? And what kind of jobs have you taken? I will tell you about the one party that I did that I got tricked into doing, and I didn't get tricked. They told me kind of what it was and who was going to be there, but in my mind, I thought I was going to be at some rich person's house and there was going to be waiters passing hors d'oeuvres around with somebody playing classical music, and it ended up being basically like an oversized nightclub situation in Eastern Market. But the thing that made me think the first thing was because the governor was there, the mayor was there, a bunch of other local politicians and celebrities, and it basically was a nightclub with VIP, and it was cool. But it just wasn't my gig. It wasn't my jam. You guys know I don't do events. I don't do parties. And I ended up being the doorman at this thing. And they paid me pretty good. And there was no shenanigans going on. But for me, I just was like, man, I was not happy. But again, for some of you, that might be the ideal gig for you, and you might have jumped on it. The other thing, though, the only other thing was I was with somebody that I know and trusted, and you know who you are. But the rest of that team they were a joke. So if anything really jumped off, it would have been me and this other person back to back figuring out how we were going to get out of that place. But that's a story for another time. All right, guys, stay safe, and let me know your thoughts. Drop some comments below. Don't forget to like, and also please share with other security professionals. And don't forget to go over to my page on Facebook, Southeast Michigan Security Professionals. I'm really trying to grow that page. I'm trying to make it a community where like-minded people can communicate with each other, share ideas, and really help grow. With that page, my goal is to elevate the perception of security professionals, specifically in Southeast Michigan, because that's where I'm at, but I'd like to see it done all over. All right, guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.